Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 67 in our incredible new tutorial series where you are learning how to think like an engineer using the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons, and in this class we will be using the Sunfounder Elite Explorer Kit. Now, hopefully most of you guys already have your gear, but if you don't, look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon, and you can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot easier if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the homework assignment from lesson number 66, which was to control an LEDs on your Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi over Wi-Fi from your desktop PC. Now, what I showed you last week, I showed you how to set up a client-server relationship. On the PC side running Python, we have a client. On the Arduino side, we set up a server, and we connect those two using Wi-Fi and using UDP. So last week, what you were able to do was on the client side, you could send a request to the Arduino. The Arduino would read it, would do something, and then would send a response back to the PC, back to the client, and then the client would print out that response. So we could send data from the client to the PC, from the client to the Arduino, or from the Arduino back to the client, if that makes sense. We did that last week, but we were just kind of passing data and we got the framework done. And then what you were supposed to do for today's homework was to actually have two LEDs connected up to your Arduino. And if the client asked for the red LED, you were to turn the red LED on. If the client asked for the green LED, you were to turn the green LED on. And if the client said off, you were supposed to turn both LEDs off. So let me ask, were you successful? If you were successful, leave a comment down below. I am legend, double chest bump. And if you were not successful, leave a comment down below. I folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair. Hopefully most of you guys were able to do it because it was really pretty straightforward once you got that basic core client server framework going. And so I'll go ahead and I'll show you my solution. So what we want to do is we want to come over and we want to start where we left off last week. So what I need you guys to do is open up the most excellent www.toptechboy.com. You'll use this happy little search icon and you'll go back and you'll get that software that we ended up with last week. You'll search on something like create a simple client server connection over Wi-Fi. Now, this first program is the Arduino side program. This is the server program. So we're going to copy it. And then we are going to come to a fresh new bare minimum, and we're going to paste that. Okay, so that's very good. That is going to turn your Arduino Uno into a server, okay, a UDP server. Now you're going to have to connect to Wi-Fi, so you're going to have to put your credentials in. So we're going to come here on these three dots. We're going to click and we're going to say new tab. We want that new tab to be secrets.h, exactly like that. And now what you need to do is you've got to put in your credentials. So we come over here, it needs to be in this format. So let's grab this. And now let's come back to the Arduino IDE. to the Arduino IDE. And here is our secrets tab is open. We're going to paste. Right here, you put exactly, being careful of spaces and capitalization, your Wi-Fi name. My Wi-Fi name is Manor House, like that. Now here you're going to put in between the quotes exactly your Wi-Fi password. Now I don't want you to see my Wi-Fi password, so I'm going to let you look at the river for a second, and I am going to put in my Wi-Fi password. And then I will come back over and you can see that I've switched over to the sketch, so you don't see my secrets file, but you're going to import the secrets file here. Okay, so now our server should be up and running. So now let's do the client side. So we're going to come back to the website, and we've gotten the server, we have gotten the secrets file, and now you need to get that client code that we developed last week. So I'm going to copy. Now we're going to come over here to Thonny, and I'm going to paste that into Thonny. Now let's start by running the server program. What the server is going to do, it's going to fire up, it is going to connect to Wi-Fi, and then it's going to sit and it's going to wait for the client to ask something. So we're going to run the server program. Hopefully it'll work. Seems to be pretty happy so far. That looks good. Now what I'll do is I'll turn on the serial monitor, and now I'm going to hit the reset button on my Arduino. Then it's trying to connect to Manor House. It says connected to Wi-Fi, and then it gives me the Arduino IP address. That IP address is what needs to go over here on the host. Now your IP will be different than mine, but you will get your IP address here, and then you will put it here. Okay, now the server should be able to send a request to the client should be able to send a request to the server. The server is up and running, and it's waiting to hear from a client. So we're going to come over here and we're going to run this. Now the first thing that the client wants is it wants to know what color you want. So if I say red, what it's going to do is it's going to send red back to, it's going to send red to, the client is going to send red to the server. The server is going to read the packet. Then the server has to clean up the packet, and then it has to change the packet to a string, and then it will print that request, and then it will send a response back to the client. The client will read that response, and then we'll print the response. So it all starts with the client. Client sends a request, the server reads it, the server does something, the server makes a response, the server sends the response back to the client reads that response, and then prints the response. So we've got the data going one way, red, going back the other way. And once you have that framework, then you can make it do anything. Let me get out of your way a little more. So if I type in red and then click enter, what we see is that the Arduino, the server, reads that packet, but you see it's a messed up packet because it's reading any extraneous data in there. We clean up the packet, and then we get just the simple red, which is what we wanted, so it's cleaned up, and then we print received color red. Then we craft a response. That response is, here is your red marble, and then that sends that back over here, and it's red. The client reads it and then prints the response, prints the server response. Here is your red marble, or we could say green. and then it says here is your green marble or off. Okay, so if you see, to do this thing that we're trying to do, we don't have to change the client, because the client just asks you what you want and then it sends it to Arduino. Then Arduino reads it in. Now it's on the Arduino side that we're going to have to do something. So let's come down here to our void loop, and what we see is that in the void loop we look to see if there is data available. If there is UDP data available, if UDP.parsePacket, if there's something there for us to look at, we will enter this. I'm going to do a Control T to straighten this up a little bit. Then we have this big if statement. Most of our void loop is inside this if statement. So if we've got something to read, we first of all see how long it is. How long is the packet that is there to read? And that will be data length. And how do we get the length of the packet? We say UDP.available. If it's 4 characters, then data length will be 4. If it's 8 characters, data length will be 8. Then what we do is we print data length, how long is the packet. Then we read the packet. We do a UDP.read, and we put the read into the variable myPacket, and then we print that packet. Now that packet might have extraneous data in it. So what we've got to do is we've got to clean it up by putting a sort of like end character on it, and the end character is a 0. So what we do is we say myPacket of data length is equal to 0. Now, if the data packet is 3 characters, if the data is 3 characters long, then myPacket of data length would actually be the fourth position, because 0, 1, 2, 3, or yeah, 0, 1, 2, and then of 3 will be where we put the 0. So we're not overriding what we've just read. Then we print out the cleaned up packet. So if you look here, what you can see is the off was 3 characters long, but what the uncleaned up packet was off and then another O. Okay, and then what we can do is we can then clean it up. All right, and so let's look at this. So I'm going to say red again, and then what does it say? It says red, and then what I have is I have these extra characters, which I then clean off and get a clean red, and then I say the received color is red. So what we do here is we print out the clean one, and then we take myPacket, which is a character array, we turn it into a string, and that string is going to be the variable color. And then just in case there's any extra white spaces, or just in case there are any extra blank spaces, we trim color, and now we have our clean string of color. Okay, then we print it out. So now we have printed it out, but now we need to do something with it. Okay, now we're going to say if color equal red, and I should say red like that. Okay, what do we want to do? Well, we want to do a digital write of red pen, and we're going to send it high. Okay, I should take a second and I should show you the circuit at this point. So what we have in the circuit is we have a red LED and a green LED. The red LED is connected to the digital pin 8, and the green LED is connected to the digital pin 9. And then the short leg of the LEDs go through a 1,000 ohm resistor down to the ground rail. And then I've got this power module here to power the project, because we want to show you we can run completely remotely, not connected to anything. And so then to have this power module run the Arduino, I have the ground rail connected to ground over here, and I have the power rail, the 5-volt rail, connected to VN, and that'll allow us to run the Arduino off of this. So that is our circuit. So let's come back over to our code, and so we're going to say if the client asks for red, then we're going to do a digital write red pin high. Now, if we're going to do that, we better set up our pins up here. And so before we go into the void setup, we're going to say an integer red pin. And what did I say that was? That was pin 8. And then I'm going to have int green pin, and that's going to be pin 9. Like that. Now, if we're going to use those pins in the void setup, we've got to do our pin mode. So I'm going to do pin mode. Red pin is going to be an output. And then pin mode. Green pin is going to be an output. So now my pin modes are done. Now, we come back to where we were working. In the void loop, we do all of our reading and cleaning, and now we're going to say if the color is red, then make the red pin high. Now the next ones are going to be almost exactly like that, so we'll come here and we'll paste that. Okay, if the color is green, then we are going to send green pin high. Okay, and then the final thing will be if the color is off, then we're going to say that red pin is low. Man, I really messed that up, didn't I? That should be there. That's the problem with copying and pasting, isn't it? Let's clean all those things up. Okay, so that all looks good. So we got red, we got green, we got off. All right, now you see here we're creating a response, and we say here is your color marble. Well, we're not dealing with marble, so we better craft a more meaningful response to send back to the client. And we can do these in the if statements. If the color is red, then what do I want the response to be? The response is going to be equal to color concatenated with the string LED is on. Like that. Okay. And then inside the green if statement, we'll say the response is equal to color, because this time color will be green, so it's really the same thing. Concatenated with space LED is on. Okay, that looks good. And then if the color is off, the response should be equal to all LEDs are off. Okay, like that. We'll give it like that. And then this closes that if statement. Let me clean these up. Okay, that closes all of those in statements. Then we send the response back to the client. Okay, so now let's run this and see how many errors we have in there. Looking pretty good. It is downloading. Okay, now that went pretty good. I am going to, it looks like it is connected and everything is good. Now over here on the client side, I'm going to run the client program. Again, we didn't have to change the client. So now let's see if we can give you a view of this, and then what I'm going to say here is, it says enter a color. I'm going to say red. Let's see what happens. Boom! Red. Now let's say, okay, it didn't respond. Let's try that again. It worked, but it didn't send me the response. So let's see again. Okay, when we read it that time, the red LED came on, but then it gave an error on the client side saying that it hadn't gotten a response. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the server again. I'm going to start the server again from scratch. And so let's see if we can download it again. Somehow it wasn't getting a response back within 5 seconds. It did turn the LED on, but then the client didn't get the response back. So, okay, I've downloaded the code again. I'm going to reset the Arduino, and then here it says it is connected to Wi-Fi on that port. Now I'm going to come over here and I am going to run the client again, enter a color. Okay, sometimes, like if it glitches a little bit on the connection, it's just best to restart the server. So now let's try. It says red. Okay, server response, red LED is on, and boom, the red LED came on. Now let's say green, and it says green LED is on. That's good. Now let's try off, and then oops, it turned the red LED off. It didn't turn the green LED off. And so let's look at the off. Okay, look at that. I said write the red low, but I forgot to turn the green off. So digital write, and then it'll be green pin, and that's low like that. Okay, now we're going to have to run the server again. I'll stop the client. Okay. Let's see where we are. UDP started, so it looks like it is connected. So I'll run it over here. Say red. Okay. Red LED is on. Red LED is on. Green LED is on. And then off. And then let's say red. And then let's say off. Let's say green. Let's say off. Okay. And then let's say red, green, and off. Okay, this thing is working absolutely perfectly. Okay, so we have a server that's listening for data. We have the client that's getting input from the user, sending it to the server. The server reads it. The server does what it's told. The server responds back to the client. The client reads the response, prints it, and then you do the whole thing again. So guys, this is just kind of showing you the framework, but instead of an LED, just whatever you want to do, you do after you get your command, which we named the command here color. Might have been better if we would just called it command, because in other applications, it's not going to be color that we're reading. Okay, now what I want to show you now, I want to show you like what if I wanted to control, like what if I wanted to send more than just one number, because maybe I would need to send data. Maybe I would need to send an array or a list from the client over to the server. So let's say, what if I said like a color 255, 255, 0, so that would be red and green. This would be kind of like the color yellow to orange, okay? And if I sent that 255, 255, 0, if I sent that, look, I've read it in, and now I have a string 255, 255, 0. But now if I wanted to do something on the server side, on the Arduino, I've got to be able to break that string into something that, like, I want an R is equal to something, a G is equal to something, and a B is equal to something. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to come over here and we are going to need to see if we can break that thing up. So we're going to need some more variables. Before our void setup, we're going to need a string, or we're going to need an int, which is going to be R for red. we are going to need an int G, which is for green, and we're going to need an int, which B is for blue. And so what I'm going to want is I'm going to want the 255 to go to R. I'm going to want the 255 to go to G, and then I'm going to want the 0 to go to B. Now to do that, we have to find out where the commas are. It's very easy to split these strings up in Python on the client side, but it's a little bit trickier to do it on Arduino. So I want to show you how to do it on the Arduino. So it's receiving 255, 255, 0. I have to figure out where those commas are. So where is my first? I'm going to have an integer, which is going to be the position of the first comma, and then I'm going to have an int, the position of the second comma. Like that. Now, why do I have to do that? Because if I put in the number 15, the comma is not always going to be in the fourth position. Okay, if this was 15 or 0, the comma would not be in the fourth position. So I have to find the first comma and I have to find the second comma. Okay, so let's come down here. And this time, we are not going to do I'm going to not do all the things that I just did, because now I'm teaching you something new. I'm not going to turn this LED on and off, because really here we would need an RGB LED, but I'm going to show you how to split a string at the commas. Okay, so we have done the color trim and we have printed the response. Okay, so now I've got to find the first comma, right? So let's make sure you see. I see sometimes I'm whipping around and you guys are having trouble following me. So where are we? Okay, we got the data length, we printed it, we cleaned up the string by putting, or the bytes by putting a 0 in there. We printed the cleaned up one, and then we changed my packet, the character array, to color, and then we did a color.trim, and then we printed out what we received. Now I've got to find the first comma, and I do that by saying first comma, which is an integer, is going to be color the string dot index of, and you got to think of that as like the position. I want to know what is the position or the index of what, of a comma. Okay, I want to find the comma, and then where do I start looking? At the 0th position. So I start from the 0th position and I'm looking for the first comma, and it will put that index in first comma. Now I also need to find the second comma, and that's going to be color dot index of. Again, what am I looking for? I am looking for a comma, and then where do I look? I start looking at first comma, because I don't want to find the first comma. Right? I don't want to find the first comma. I want to find the next comma. So first comma is where the first comma is, and then I'll look at the character after. I will start looking at the character after first comma. So then what will it find? It will find the second comma. Pause it and think about what I just said, but you see, it's what I'm looking for, where I want to start looking, 0. What I'm looking for, man, those pop-ups are annoying. What I'm looking for is comma, but this time I'm looking one past the first comma. So now I should have first comma and I should have second comma. Now I need to get my R, my G, and my B. Well, R, and remember, now you know, you got to remember that this thing is a string. So now R is going to be color dot substring. And what part of that big string do I want? Well, I want to start at 0 and I want to go up to but not include the first comma. Okay, and that would give me, in this case, that would give me from the 0th position up to but not including first comma, so that would give me the string 255. Okay, but the problem is the 255 is going to be a string, so what do I need to do? And then take that to int, like that. So that will take the string 255 and it will change it into the integer 255. Okay, so now I have R. G is going to be equal to color.substring. This time I don't want to start looking at 0. I want to start looking at first comma plus 1, right? Because I don't want to start I don't want to start here. I want to go first comma plus 1, which would be the 2. Okay, so we're going to go to first comma plus 1. We want to start at first comma plus 1, and we want to go up to but not include the second comma. Okay, so we're going to go from there up to but not including the second comma. And then we want to do a dot to int like that. All right. So now I've got G. Now B, I'm going to go color dot substring, and then I want to go from what? Second comma plus 1. This is second comma, and this is second comma plus 1. And then I want to go to the end. So I don't say go up to but not include, because I want to go all the way to the end. So I just have to give it the starting point. And now to int, open, close, semicolon. Okay, now I should have R and G and B, and they should be integers. Okay, so I will do now a serial.println. I'll print the R, which is an integer, serial.println. I'll do the G. Don't forget your semicolon. And then serial.println. And I'll do the blue like that. Now this time we're not doing anything except for I'm teaching you how to parse comma delimited data that you might get from the client. Okay, so now let's see how many mistakes we made in here. Before second comma. Who's your friend? Mr. Semicolon. Okay, on line 47. Didn't have a semicolon. Serial was misspelled. Serial. Try it again. Done compiling, uploading, looking good. Okay, now this time on the client side, I'll run the client again, and I'll get this back on, the serial monitor back on. Okay, I'm going to stop the client, and then I'm going to reset. I'm going to reset the Arduino. Okay, the server is running, and then you don't need to see the Arduino because we're just seeing if we can parse the data. So now I'm going to run the client, and I'm going to say 255, 255, 0, like that. And then I'm going to say enter, and then look at that. It prints R, the integer 255, green the integer 255 and blue the integer 0. Or let's say I go 255 comma 255. We lost our lights. There we go. Little studio glitch. 255 comma 255. That works. Okay. Then let's say 0 comma 0 comma 255. That would be blue, and we get 0 comma 0 comma 255. All right. This is very important because a lot of times on the server side, on the client side, you don't want to send just a single string or a single number. You want to send comma delimited data. But if you do, you have got to be able to parse it over here. And so, my friend, we have, number one, completed the homework. We can turn the red LED on, the green LED on, or we can turn them off. And then what we've done now is we've seen how we can parse data. And so now what your homework assignment is to take these two programs, and then what I want you to do is I want you to connect up an RGB LED, and then what I want you to do is control the color of the RGB LED over Wi-Fi using your client. Okay. Now, one thing I didn't show you that I really should have shown you, I'm going to come back over here. Okay. And I'm going to come back over here. And let's see. What I really want is I'm going to see if I can run that earlier server program, because one thing I didn't show you, let's see if I can do it here. Okay, what I just want to show you now is I want to show you. So the only thing I'm doing here is I'm just going back to the LED example. I'm just going back to the red and the green LED example. And so what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to unplug this. I'm going to unplug this. And now I'm going to turn my power board on. And then what you see here is I have no connections at all, right? I have no connections at all. And then I'm going to come to our old friend, the client program here, and I'm going to run the client program, okay? And I'm going to say red, and boom, green, boom, off, boom. Now watch this. You see, I am not connected to anything, but I can say red. What happened? Red. Boom. You see the red one came on? Green. Boom. The green one came on. And now they're both on. And now I say off. And they're both off. Boom. Okay. So you see, we are running completely remotely, and we are controlling things completely from the client. Okay, so now what your homework assignment is to replace the red and the green LED with an RGB LED, and then what your assignment is to control the color of the RGB LED by sending comma delimited data. So if I sent a 0 comma 0 comma 255, it would turn the RGB LED blue. Now, why am I doing several lessons on this? I'm doing several lessons on this because I want you guys, let's look at a different view of the river here. It's a beautiful day out on the river. Also, I'll show you my front yard. I am basically the rainy season has just started, so I've kind of got my gardens prepared, my garden beds prepared, and I'm going to be planting the corn there pretty soon. And then also up here over in that corner, I've got an area that I cleared that I'm going to put a fruit and nut orchard in. So that is what is going on the old compound. Your homework assignment is to control the color of an RGB LED from your client. And why am I doing a couple of lessons here? Number one, you guys that are not experts at Python, I want you to get comfortable with Python. The second thing is I want you to get comfortable with this framework of a client and a server. The server listens to hear from the client sends a command, the server Arduino does something, then the server responds to the client reads that response, and so you're sending data both ways and you're doing something interesting, and you're going to get a little experience about that doing the homework, which is now to control an RGB LED from the client. Okay, then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the Python side, and we're going to start creating graphical user interfaces using PyQt5, because you don't want to spend your life just responding to command prompts. You might want an interesting GUI that has buttons that do things, that control things on the Arduino, or slider bars where you can set things on the Arduino. And so that is what we want to do next. Guys, I hope you are having as much fun taking these classes as I am making them. Always at this point, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are standing with me on Patreon. These in-depth, long format teachings, these videos are not going to get hundreds of thousands of views. These videos get a few thousand views, and so it is the support that's coming from my Patreons that allows me to continue to make this in-depth content, fresh, good content every week I release. It's because of you guys who are supporting on Patreon, and so thank you. You can also support the channel by giving a thumbs up to this video and leaving a comment down below. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, when you do, make sure you ring that bell so you'll get notifications when future lessons drop. And most importantly, share this video with other people, because the world needs more people thinking like an engineer and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.